If you have a buyer or seller, you know that it's so important for them to understand what's going on with the property, which could be in your county.
So we're going to talk about how Claude Code helps you be a better agent, makes you a smarter agent, because it can look at the rezoning applications, plats, permit files, everything that's sitting in public record that's really kind of hard for us to read sometimes because it is a lot of government and they do it in a lot of different ways. But you need to know, because your clients need to know, we're going to talk about how Claude Code helps you be the better agent, because you can now look things up that used to be a little bit of a struggle and something that you might not have wanted to do because it can be different for every county what we're talking about. So we're talking about how we built our system, how you can build your system. So Claude is looking up things that matter for our job. And it's the great thing about having Claude Code write it is once it's a skill that's going, so you can get an email, you can get a text message if it's connected to your BoldTrail. You can do you can get notified about all of these things that might be happening in your area. Probably I go with email because it can open up in my email every morning before you even had my coffee.
My wife means CRM when she said BoldTrail, but some of you might use just BoldTrail when you're part of the EXP, but someone maybe another CRM.
So basically your AI is basically now the engine, and you're sitting down and letting it run once you've built the skill. And really that's what automation is all about. So we're just talking about different ways you can automate and how this kind of stuff works for you, because these are just examples of things you can automate and have it run systematically, and why it's an amazing thing to have, and it's something that can run itself and you didn't have to think about it before, or it was just something that you might have avoided in the past because you're like, who knows what's going to be over there, but you know they're going to build something else. Well, now we know how we're going to build these things. So that's really what this is for. Who is this for?
Who is this for? Basically, if you are an agent that you are 2 or 5 years in the business and you are trying to build a relationship and you know how it works already, and you want it to be the go-to agent, be in your area, in your county, wherever you are practicing real estate. And basically, and what worries you is losing that trust, because newer tech forward agent look like they know more than you do in your area.
So in my county alone, there were 4 shapes that I had to pay attention to, and maybe you have a different one that Claude can also answer for you. But basically, there are towns and counties that keep their public agendas. That's what planning boards, zoning boards, town councils, and they all do that. That's the law. But how they publish and how they tell us information is not consistent. And this is why a lot of agents never even look, because it gets confusing on how they even tell us. So we oftentimes rely on the news, which might not actually tell us at all either. So now we have a system that creates how we're looking it up, and we had 4 different problems in 4 different jurisdictions, so 4 different structures on how it works.
Exactly. Therefore, basically that's help you, because some of the jurisdiction publish a very nice clean feed, and they have a structure, and some of them they actually have different style that might not be so clear for you to pull all those information from.
Another one of the 4 that I've had to deal with is a structural portal, where it's an online system where there's an API behind it. Those are the best, right? When they have the API, then they can just kind of feed my API and then it's going to be awesome. But most of them are not that. Most of them are a data index of documents, PDF after PDF, agenda after agenda, sorted by meeting date, and each one you open by hand because you have to click. So this is why a lot of people get overwhelmed with it, because it's not just or the 4th one is just a render in the browser. So there's no API feed, no feed at all. They're just putting it on a web landing page for a human to scroll, but that's not necessarily, and they're not even putting things on there to let the codes understand it. So it's really, they're just saying it how a human might read it on their own agenda pages. So when you ask Claude, what?
Basically, you need to ask the cloud to check for you, especially your own town or your county planning page. Have it tell you which of these 4 shapes that we already talked about and we categorize in.
Or if there's another one, hit me in the comments. We'll talk about it.
And and basically that is very simple, because when you know that what shape is, if it's on this 4 category or out of this, then it's easier to deal with it.
Basically, you have to understand, like in my one county alone, there were 7 different jurisdictions in there. 5 of them had very plain, 2 of them had the browser method, everything. One publishes nothing, they just give it to the county, so to pull it from that as well. So it's all entirely how these records get there. So really it's a relatable, workable split, and every Cloud Code can kind of work you through how to do that, because Cloud Code is vibe coding, right? So if it has to read the documents, it has to know what to pull. So you're gonna have to walk it through the first time. Okay, well this is giving you a PDF. Well, read the PDF. But what am I looking for in the PDF? So you have to be able to explain, and you're not looking for the summarization of meetings. You really don't care about who showed up when, and what else they were talking about. We're there for our rezoning. We're there for our subdivisions, annexations. You're there for the exceptions. You're there for planned unit developments. You're there for multi-year, multi-phase projects that are going to reshape the whole agenda. So you have to kind of tell it what you're looking for, and even tell it infrastructure, because if there's a major highway that's coming like you are, you need to know where that's going to fit. So it might not be like you might not care about that street light, but you care about the 5-lane highway that they might build, right? So you have to know what's going on in your area, and this is by teaching Cloud how to read it. You're doing it one time, you're reading it with it, and be like, hey, that one's important, this one's not important, and you're telling it what to do.
Exactly. And now we wanted to talk about why a keyword lies. Here's the why a lot of agents burn trying to try basically on their own. It worth slowing down and tell the Cloud to just search the word subdivision, and you will get a garbage back at that point. And legal document reuse ordinary words that have nothing to do with the real estate.
Like a political subdivision of the state might show up in government paperwork, but that's a government agency, and that's not going to affect us unless they're talking about building in a very specific area. That's not a housing development. So we're focusing on just understanding the housing. So understanding keywords alone is not going to help you with this itself. So we have to kind of be able to walk it through that one time and say, this is how we look at things. I really don't care about the person's name. I might care about that acreage, because the bigger it is, the more likely it's going to be a bigger subdivision. But basically having a way to have Cloud go back to looking up parcels or looking up how it looks up land might actually help us out a little bit as well. So there's something else you have to kind of build in there. So, and if it's just stating a regular subdivision, you might just get, you're looking at the planning, the zoning laws. Well, you might get somebody's trying to build a garage. That's not what you care about. We care about what's being built, and we care what Cloud looks at and tells us what it is. So you have to set the threshold.
Exactly. Therefore, where you should set the threshold, because not every filing deserves the same weight. For example, treat 2-lot family subdivision as same as 300 home development. And basically, in this way, you bury a project that actually change completely your market. So you need to set a real threshold with Cloud Code and decide what counts as big is in your area and code into it.
So basically, maybe it's 100 homes, maybe it's 50 homes, maybe it's 200 homes in your area because there's nothing there. Maybe there's 50 or more acres of land. Maybe that's something else you want to look at. Or maybe it's a large tract that's going to be, or rezoning of a large tract of land. 25 or more acres might be something that you're really looking at, especially if it's being rezoned from farm to residential or whatever it is that's being moved. So these numbers can change in your market. You know your market, you know what those numbers are going to be, but understand you have to give Cloud those numbers as well, because this is going to shape those emails that we're going to talk about that you should be getting. That way you're seeing anything that's going through that you need to know because you're the expert in your area.
Basically, we want to say that none of this number that we are telling you is universal. You need to know your market, and that's how you can planning in your Cloud. Now, why it persists? This is also where it stops being something that you operate on. And what is that?
Basically, once you have set up this Cloud and code, it's running and rerunning and rerunning. You're getting every morning, every week, however you want to get it because you know your market. But you're not opening up different portals. You're not reading all those PDFs. You're not waiting for the news to report on these things anymore. You're not just picking up the local newspaper. You're now going to be the front end of saying these things are happening. They're about to build a 300 home acre thing five blocks down the street from this, so we need to know what that's coming in a year. And if you have a seller client, maybe they should be thinking about selling before that 300 housing development gets there. So you have to think about, or maybe they should wait because now that's going to up the price of their own home. So basically understanding that is a conversation you have with your buyers and sellers, that way you can be the person who's actually helping them every single day. And knowing what's going on in your neighborhood just makes you a better agent.
Exactly. Therefore, you will stop reading inside, as my wife said, a week, because Claude Code, it writes every project, it finds everything that you already planned to your code and shows you what project is going on, and running a record checks every time that you run the Claude Code against of every information that you have about this specific subdivision.
That reminds me also, you need to set in the parameters. So let's just say ABC Farms is being turned into residential neighborhoods and you have 300 things. You don't want Claude to send you the same email about ABC Farms is now going to turn residential all the time. So you kind of want to set a limit and say, tell me once, tell me twice. Don't tell me every single email as well. And you can tell Claude, oh, you've already told me, I got this email, set it, don't tell me again for another 120 days. So that is another thing to bring up in the code that you reminded me of. So when you're sitting down, opening the chat, you're giving the parameters and you're saying what you want. And those are really, really important. And one more thing we're really going to quickly talk about is permit data. Permit data is good for when we're selling and buying homes, but it's not necessarily great when we're talking about the general purposes of their rezoning an entire area. So I wouldn't say just go to your permit section. That's a whole other system, but some people do get confused, so I just want to add that as well. But basically, your Claude Code will be able to do whatever it is you want. If you want it to read the PDF, you want it to read the API, you want it to actually go to this website on such and such a date. This is something that's going to be automatically done, and that's the best part of this, because once you have a cron, once you have that automation going, you can be the in the know agent, and that's really going to help you in your business.
Exactly. Therefore, do you want to add anything else?
No, I think this is just one of the many things that you build in Claude Code. We're just giving a lot of examples in this little section of it because we really want you to be able to take what we're talking about and build your own skills. And I can't wait to hear what your skills you are building as well. If you want to see one of mine, and really quickly, I have a GitHub. You can grab it in the description below. The GitHub's going to, just see a listing description, very general. But, this is Alan and Victoria. We're Icon Agents at EXP, and we love talking about all these skills that you can actually build with Claude Code that actually help you with your business and grow your business.
Exactly. See you next time.